Hey guys, welcome to Film Darkly. I'm your host, Anthony Paceno, and today I wanted to bring you guys a review. I was currently, like everyone else, being in quarantine, you're looking for things to stream if you're not trying to be busy in other ways. I'm working, helping out with my church, writing articles for a online like news site. Basically, I do like movie reviews type stuff, more philosophy. Um, and I'm also currently working on a short film. But besides all that, I got this going on. Obviously, my podcast. I haven't been as busy with it as I've not been watching a ton of movies. I've been watching more shows. But the other day I decided to I've been going on this whole binge of finding these old, disturbing films that have been regarded by some of my favorite filmmakers as like great horror movies. So like the other day I watched Rosemary's Baby. I've been meaning to watch Carrie, but I haven't done it. And I've seen Carrie, but I want to watch it again. And there's a few other horror movies I'm watching that I'm like totally blanking on right now. But one of the films I came across was this movie called Antrum. Wait, I want to get it right. Antrum, the deadliest film ever made. And now, this movie came out in 2018. It's a horror film. It showed me it was trending on Prime, but when I looked again, I noticed that like I don't think it's really trending. I think it's more like you watched it and so did a bunch of other people type thing. So I decided to put this movie on because I was just really fascinated by it. You know, I was reading the little synopsis and it just says, a young boy and girl enter the forest to dig a hole to hell. Said to be a cursed film from the late 1970s, Antrum examines the horrifying power of storytelling. So obviously this movie immediately got my attention. Like right away I was like, okay, I'm down to check this out. You know, I am a religious individual, but I'm not as like, I don't know how to say it, like I'm not as stuck on certain ideas, especially when it comes to things like demonic type stuff, especially when a lot of these movies sort of are kind of almost like warnings, or even in some cases like there's victory over the demonic stuff. So I don't know, that's just kind of my way of perceiving it. That's why I don't see it as like this wrong thing. Although I've never really been interested in making a movie like this, so that's something else. But I'm looking it up on Prime right now. So yeah, on Prime it says, rumored to have been lost, Antrum appears as a cursed film from the 1970s. Viewers are warned to proceed with caution. It's said to be a story about a young boy and girl who enter the forest to save the soul of their recently deceased pet. They journey to Antrum, the very spot the devil landed after being cast out of heaven. There, the children begin to dig a hole to hell. So, there you go. That's what I read and immediately was like, okay, I gotta check this out. So, the film, I'm gonna kind of do like a review, be a little tiny bit spoilery. So if you want to know nothing, I would just say go watch the movie. But you might want to listen to what I have to say before you watch it, though. So this movie stars Nicole Tompkins and Rowan Smith. It has a few other actors in it, but they're like these very tiny roles where they're not even worth mentioning. Essentially, the film is sort of... I'm trying to think how to start with this. So it kind of starts as like a mockumentary. It's talking to all these people. It's saying this played. When it played, the theater caught on fire, and everyone got, a bunch of people got burnt up. Then the film disappeared until the filmmakers years later, all the way to the 2000s, were able to dig it up. And now that they've dug it up, they found that some altercations were made to the film. But they're going to go ahead and let you guys watch it, even though everyone who has watched this movie has never survived. But supposedly the people who have say, oh, there's all these things that have been done to the film. Now, they're setting you up because this movie isn't made like other movies. It is made as if it was done in the 70s. It plays credits at the beginning of the film like you would see at a 70s films. It actually doesn't have bad acting from the boy or the girl. I actually think both Nicole and Rowan did well. But it starts out with basically some visuals of their dog, the dog being put to sleep in front of the little boy, and the little boy on the way home asking the mom if the dog went to heaven, and the mom says no. He was a bad dog, or she was, I think it's a she, was a bad dog, and they went to hell. And so the sister, the older sister, who's played by Nicole, is essentially taking him to the place where supposedly the devil landed, so that they could dig a hole to hell, and they could take his soul and free him. That's the whole point. Is it's to take his soul out of hell and take him to heaven. If you can't tell, it seems as if it would be kind of a ruse, almost like she's doing something to help him cope with the passing of his dog, and that kind of is the case. So a little spoilery, but at the same time, it's something you can kind of already see that's happening, but you're not sure because she is acting very serious with him, and it's mostly just him and her. The movie's like full of weird imagery. There's a point where you see like a couple of people out on a boat. There's a lady in it. She's naked. She sees a little boy. They hear noises in the middle of the night. They have this fear of a Cerberus, which is a 3-headed dog. Then at some point they run into these two people who are speaking a totally different language. They're played by Dan Istrat, and the other guy's name is like Circus Swalowski, I guess. I think that's how you say it. I don't know. Anyways, neither of them are really known, but they're these two guys. They have this huge statue of basically the traditional devil-worshipping symbolism, which is the man with the goat head. And it's making this weird symbol with its hand, and there's all these symbols all over it. And it's actually sitting over a fire, and it has a big belly, and you can basically put people in the belly. And there's this man they ran into earlier in the film, and they kind of hear him inside of the belly banging on the metal doors to get out, and they have a fire set. So the sister's like tripping out, takes the little brother away. The little brother doesn't realize he needs to be scared, and apparently there's supposed to be like 5 layers to hell, and the movie keeps reminding us when we're in a new layer with some like weird demonic voice and showing like a book, and it names each layer. And so the boy's like, we're in layer 3 or something, and she doesn't believe him, and that's when she kind of like reveals, look, I don't actually believe any of this. This is all garbage. It was just meant to make you feel better. But he's not having it. And the movie has a lot of like tropes where like the little boy is obscene, like obnoxiously annoying. Like, he's not annoying in personality. He's annoying in how he won't shut up when there's supposed to be danger near. And there's clearly supposed to be danger near, and he just won't shut up. He'll just keep crying, talking out loud. It makes, like, no sense because he's scared, but at the same time, like, he's being noisy as can be. And it's like, I don't see a little kid really just being that stupid. But it's sort of like stuff like that. And then it turns very Texas Chainsaw Massacre-ish when we run into these two guys who have this giant devil statue. and are essentially burning people inside of it, because of course, they end up going one-on-one with the sister and the boy, and they try to fry the boy, they cook up the boy, and the sister breaks free. And like I said, it ends up sort of like this Texas Chainsaw Massacre type situation where they're just weirdos, and of course they break out, they get free from the situation, but it's really only like, it doesn't happen to like the third act of the film. And then you kind of get this really weird ending where the little boy runs away and finds a chain at the bottom of the hole, takes the chain and frees this dog. There's a dog in it. It's like a husky. Frees it. And it turns out like somehow that symbolized the soul of his dog was freed. And so it says the end. But then the movie, like, I thought it would have actually been a fine ending. It still wouldn't have been... I mean, I'll give my verdict on the film after. But it still would have been what it was. But it just would have had a better ending. Instead, the movie, like, says the end. It plays out like it's the end. It has music like it's the end. Then all of a sudden it like goes back. And it's almost as if there's added footage. And meanwhile you're getting all this symbolism, like you get a point where it's a very snowy screen and a devil is looking at you very creepily. And then you get another shot of another demon-like creature, devil-like creature staring at you and pointing at you. It's stuff like that. And then there's like lots of like weird scratchy symbols that will just show up on the screen. Stuff like that. And so it gets kind of weirded out to me. Like, it's an odd film. And then it kind of has this abrupt ending, but the abrupt ending is fine. Then it gives you a second abrupt ending when the footage continues and it seems as if it's not supposed to continue. And we start getting all this imagery of what looks like a couple that have been captured by a military or something, and they're basically being executed. They're being shot. It didn't look too gory to me. It's just like black and white. It looks like you hear shots and you see them on the ground. But it's just weird. And then the movie just sort of has this scene where it looks as if the sister's going to kill the little boy on accident because she's sitting in a tent because they're camping out where the devil landed. And by the way, they dig like a 2-foot hole. So I don't even get it. But anyways, they're sitting and they're camping and she hears something outside. She hears a chain and she thinks it's a Cerebus because she's flipped out from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre guys. And all of a sudden the little boy like is coming over. You see him walking over and he's carrying the chain. And it just shows her with her rifle cocked, or I think it's a pistol, and she's ready to shoot, and all of a sudden the movie just ends. So does she kill her own brother? I don't know. Never really says. That's just straight up giving away the ending, obviously, if you haven't seen it, it sucks. But there's a reason why I chose to be very spoilery with this, and why the podcast itself will actually say spoilers, is because this movie really isn't very good. This movie is built off of a gimmick. Because the movie doesn't just end abruptly with... See, when it ends the first time abruptly, the little boy's looking up from the hole and it says the end. Because he smiles and he just says the end. And I actually thought it was a fitting ending. But then when it shows the extra footage, and you get more of the symbolism, and it just sort of abruptly ends, there's no the end. It just ends. And you're just kind of left like, okay... And then all of a sudden you go back to the mockumentary. This film was found with an extra layer over the entire film that had all these symbolisms cut in. These symbols are, calling to this one demon, and they say the name of the demon, and then they're like, it's essentially an invitation for the demon to come to you, or to be in the home of the watcher. So it's kind of like trying to creep you out, because it's making you feel like you watched a movie that essentially summons a demon. And that's how it ends. Um, so what they did was they essentially made a movie for very cheap that they made look like a 70s film. They try to make it scary. There's lots of little scary elements. And then they try to really break the fourth dimension by reaching out to the audience with weird imagery. But they set all this up with this interesting little gimmick that would sell you on the idea of the film, so that when you watch the film, you're more scared than what the film can actually scare you, and you feel more uneased than what the film can actually give you. So if it wasn't for the mockumentary, you wouldn't really feel that scared of the film. You'd be kind of scared. You would think it is a trippy movie, but you would probably have more appreciation for it. If it was probably just the movie, cut all the mockumentary stuff, just the movie, don't even show that extra ending, just cut the end when the little boy looks up and smiles and it says the end. Boom, end of movie. That movie, while it's not that great of a film, it's better than it is with the mockumentary. Because even though the gimmick amplifies everything, the movie in it itself, from beginning to the point where it actually says the end, is a better film than with the mockumentary. And part of the reason the mockumentary is even there, the extra footage, is because the regular movie is like an hour. It's not very long at all. So in other words, it was also a way of making a semi-short film, although that's a little longer than a normal short film, and still trying to say, oh look, we have a full film. It's because I think the full thing is, it's 94 minutes, so it's an hour and 34 minutes. And I would say you probably spend a good 20 minutes of that with mockumentary. So, and then there's the extra imagery. So it's about an hour and 14 minutes. But it's odd to me because it's like these people didn't have a bad movie in mind. They had a decent little flick in mind without doing any of this. And yet they attach this gimmick to it, so it kind of lingers and makes you feel more afraid. And it kind of does its job. But you realize you're not really scared of the film. You're kind of just scared of the message it leaves you with. And it's just gimmicky. Because they really just made a bad film. And that's their way of saving their bad film. So, I don't know. It's an interesting technique. I'm not going to say it's wrong or bad in that sense, because I do think that in some ways you're doing yourself favors by doing that, because your film, which essentially would have been seen as a bad movie, is now kind of regarded as a better film. So interestingly enough, if you look on IMDb, the film has a 4.8. And that's mostly fan stuff. If you look on Rotten Tomatoes, the audience score is 60%, which is equivalent to which is the IMDb score. So the IMDb is lower than the audience score on Rotten. But the critics, which there's only 6 critics who watched this film, have it at 83%. So 83% of the 6 that watched this gave it a positive rating. Doesn't mean they gave it 100%. They could have all given it C's. But it still got C's. It essentially got, I would say it essentially got maybe, I guess like 4 C's and 2 D's or something. Or maybe even 2 F's. I don't know if that would make 83%, but it kind of does. Maybe in the world of bad math it does. But see, here's some of the reviews. Yeah, see, so according to this, 5 of the reviews are positive, 1 of the reviews is negative. And he says, isn't amateurish enough to be charming or professional enough to pull off the con job. That was Roger Moore from Movie Nation. So, That's kind of a good way of looking at it, actually. Isn't amateurish enough to be charming, or professional enough to pull off the con job? Kind of a good statement. Antrum is pure folk horror eeriness, right down to the brilliantly off-kilter score, and has the potential to be a major cult hit given its ingenious hook. That was a positive review. It may not convince viewers that the film is cursed and they're going to die after watching it, but its commitment to the gimmick, its ethereal score, and its eerie imagery make for a creepy and effective throwback horror film. So not bad. It's a film with a built-in cursed idea, though, which, you know, I think is interesting. But in the end, I don't know. I don't know if I wouldn't recommend it. Especially if you're kind of sensitive to that sort of stuff. And, you know, some people, it's like they might not believe things like that, but they're just sensitive to materials where it's trying to convince you of something that may not necessarily be true. But some people just kind of feel that way. It's sort of like watching The Exorcist. Some people watch The Exorcist, walk away, and they feel almost cursed. The Omen can make you feel that way. Because we kind of have it embedded in our culture. And so that's one of the things that, well, you know, the movies like this can really spark. But in reality, it's really not that great of a film. It's okay. I would actually like to see an edit of it without the mockumentary and the additional scene at the end. Just let it end where it ends, and kind of hand that to people and let people watch that and see what they say. I think that would be interesting. I would probably give that movie a little bit of a higher score. So this movie is going to definitely have to be at a 10. I can't even talk about it at a 5. At a 10, I think the 4.8 is kind of good. Maybe I give it more like a 5. I'm kind of iffy, but I would say about around 4.85. It wouldn't have gotten a positive review for me. I think that one reviewer kind of got it right. You know, it's not amateurish enough to be funny or be interesting, and it's not good enough to be any. It doesn't to be convincing. It's just not a convincing film. It's not on that pro level. It didn't do what Blair Witch did. And the thing about Blair Witch was it didn't put that gimmick in the film. It put that gimmick outside the film. And that's where this movie did it wrong. It had no marketing, so they chose to put its marketing in the film. But it's like people have to want to watch it. And based on the people who are watching it and not thinking much of it, good luck. So that's what I see out of this. I think these filmmakers tried. I think it's a good attempt. I don't think it's the worst film. I just don't think it's a great film either. And really, be honest, if they cut it differently, I'd probably give it a 6. You know? That's how much better I think the gimmick. I think the gimmick hurts it more than it sells it. And it's funny to say that because the gimmick kind of seemed to make it scarier. But I actually think it might be scarier without the gimmick. It might be, because it might actually feel like a cursed film. It's like, put that in the trailer. Don't put that everywhere else. Do what Blair Witch did. And that will make your film a lot better. And it's not a bad idea, actually. I think a filmmaker listening to this might want to consider that. You know, making your movie look like it's from the 70s or 60s or whatever. And just making it really weird and trippy. Because when you say your movie's that old, you know, it gives you the ability to mess with stuff. It's kind of like in Antrum, early on we see a squirrel, and it's a stop motion squirrel, and it looks terrible. But it's forgiving because you realize this is supposed to be a 70s film. You see, so you're kind of like, effects could have been bad back then, especially if it was low budget. You know, so there you go. Well, anyways, thanks for listening, guys. I will come back with another review soon. I might do one of Rosemary's Baby just to talk about it, and talk about really how good of a film it is. I'll probably be more open on it, though. I won't give so much of a review. I'll give more of like a spoiler talk on it, similar to what I did with this. And the only reason I did that with this is because I think it's a movie you could save yourself from watching, for one. And two, it's because I really feel like I can't review it without really revealing what's going on in it. So anyways, thanks for listening. Talk to you guys later. Bye.